A good place to start in teaching students what formulas are and what they mean is by using perimeter and circumference, because these are logical things. These are things that students can easily see and can easily understand. We can teach them about the words. We can teach them that these are two words that mean measuring the distance around different shapes. What we want to be careful of is that we teach the meaning of the formula and not just something that they will memorize and not really understand. So we don't want to get right away into the idea that perimeter might be measured by saying 2 of these sides plus 2 of these sides equals the perimeter, or 4 of these sides equals perimeter. We want to make sure that they see it first, because this is a good time when it's a logical kind of an explanation to have them understand what a formula is and does, so they can apply that to formulas that are more difficult down the road. So in this case, teaching perimeter and circumference, maybe particularly perimeter, could be a good time to show students how a formula becomes what it is. For example, if they're finding the distance around a square, they're going to have a starting point. Let's say we start here, and we're going to go all the way around, and we're going to measure the distance all the way around the square. Well, very simply, we can explain to students and have them see that one side of the square, if I call this A, is the same as all the other sides. So by going all the way around this, I'm going A plus A plus A plus A, which means 4A equals perimeter. So having them see that something that they understand, that it's a little more basic, like going around the shape of a square, can be turned into a formula, is a good way for them to understand what a formula is and what it does. The same thing is true with a triangle. If we're starting here, we can go here and here and here, and we're trying to find the distance all the way around the triangle. So again, we want students to think logically. If the triangle is an equilateral triangle and the sides are all the same, and we call one side B, then we can say B plus B plus B, or we could say 3B equals perimeter in an equilateral triangle. But students will know that not all triangles are the same. So if we had a triangle, for example, that looked like that, then if all the 3 sides are different, we'd have to say A plus B plus C equals perimeter. It's logical. It makes sense to them. We want them to understand that a formula represents something that is real, something that we can show in a drawing. It represents a relationship. So here we have a pentagon. If we are finding the perimeter of the pentagon, we're going all the way around the outside. Each of these sides is the same because it's a regular pentagon. So if we call one side X, we could say 5X equals perimeter, because we're adding X 5 times, which is the same as taking it times 5. We could also make sure students understand that's X plus X plus X plus X plus X. If we have a polygon that is not regular, where the sides are all different shapes, like this, then of course students would be able to see, well, are there any sides that are the same? Are they different? Can I just add all these sides up and get my perimeter? And the answer is yes, that's what perimeter means. We also want to make sure that we emphasize what the parts of the word perimeter mean. Para meaning around, and meter meaning measuring. So what we're doing is we're measuring the distance around. If we teach the meaning of that word carefully to students by breaking it into its parts, if they forget the meaning, they can figure it out. We can relate para to other words that have para, like a periscope. What does a periscope do? It helps you see around things. Peripheral vision, what does that do? What is that vision? It's the vision around what you see, the vision on the sides. So we want to make sure that we're connecting what a formula is, what a formula does, what the formula is measuring, and what that means. All of this helps us teach students the meaning of math. Sometimes when students start working with circles and we talk about finding the distance around the circle, they will still call it perimeter. And sometimes I'm accepting of that. I will say to them, yes, that's exactly right. Para means around, and perimeter means we're measuring the distance around a shape. So we could technically talk about the perimeter of a circle. I think for students who are young, to make that connection is really good. It's logical. We can also tell them, however, that because circles are different from closed shapes with sides and angles, that we have a different word, and that word is circumference. We want to again start with the meaning of that word. We want them to be thinking about what circ means. Have them think about all the different words that start with circ, circulate, circuit, circumstances. All of the different words we can think of that start with circ, at least most of them, have something to do with a circle going around. So when they see that circ, they can understand that this is going to be something to do with a circle. So for circumference, what is the formula for finding circumference? It is 2 pi r or pi d. Why does that formula work? Because if we were to take a string and go across the diameter of a circle, and then we take that same string and we go around the outside of the circle, we're going to find that it's going to go around once, twice, 3 times with a little bit more. We want students to experience that. We want them to be able to, in kid language, understand that the distance around any circle, no matter how big it is, whether it's tiny like this or whether it's as big as a room, the relationship between the diameter and the circumference is always going to be the same. It's going to be 3 times the diameter and a little bit more. Pi is the magic number that someone discovered thousands of years ago probably, that helps us find that relationship, that helps us express that relationship. So it's 3 and a little bit more. So if you use 3.14 or you use 22/7 or whatever you use for pi in any given situation, that's 3 and a little bit more. We also want students to see the difference between the two ways that this formula can be represented. So if we have the diameter times pi, 3 and a little bit more, that's probably the easiest for them to see, the easiest place to start. But we also need to make sure they understand that a diameter is made out of 2 radii. So if we have a radius here and a radius here, and we add those two together, we're going to get a diameter. So that's why the 2 r's and the d are the same. So we're taking the 2 r's times pi, or we're taking the d times pi, and that's what's giving us the circumference of a circle. If students forget the formula, we want them to be able to go back and use their logical thinking. We want them to be able to look at a circle and say, okay, I know that the distance across here is going to go around the outside 3 and a little bit more, so that would be the diameter times pi. They can reinvent the formula because they understand it. Again, finding perimeter and circumference are probably the most basic formulas that students work with. And we want to make sure that they understand why those formulas work and what a formula does as we start to teach that. Too often in textbooks, when these kinds of things are taught, things are labeled in such a way that it gives clues to students. For example, often in a textbook, when perimeter is being taught, the book will provide the students with all 4 sides. And when area is being taught, it will provide the students with only 2 sides. So students start thinking, well, that must mean that if there are 2 numbers, I multiply, and if there are 4 numbers, I add. We want to make sure that students are thinking logically. What does perimeter mean? The distance all the way around. So if I'm finding the perimeter of this shape, and I'm given only 2 sides, I need to think, this side is 4, so this side is also 4. This side is 2, so this side is also 2. So to find the perimeter, I need to add all of these together.